Okay, good evening, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and viewers at home. This is the Tuesday evening, February 22nd, meeting of Golden Speakers Toastmasters of Fairfield, Iowa, and surrounding Central Time Zone locations. The mission of our club, as is the mission of every Toastmasters club of the 16,000 around the world, is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which each member has the opportunity to develop verbal communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. Tonight, we have an enjoyable prospect ahead of us. We have Mr. Fogel to practice a speech that he'll be delivering in the area contest. And we have table topics, which I will volunteer to speak for as a practice for my entry in the table topics competition in the area contest. We have an agenda for the evening. We have roles to fill, and the first of those roles, myself being the Toastmaster, is responsible for introducing first our timer for the evening, Nick Campney. Nick, would you explain the role of a timer for the viewers at home who will watch this in the future?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, my role as the timer is to keep track of how long people speak and to notify them when they've reached their minimum criteria, when they reach kind of a midway, a happy ground, and then once again, as they run out of time, this would be the official time is up, but you have 30 additional seconds to wrap everything up and conclude. I will give both these colored cards as a notification and then write down their final time to see if they qualify or disqualify for their event. Back to you.
Thank you. Jean,
Jean?
what are you?
I so apologize for this faux pas on my part. Nick, on that email that I sent, several minutes ago, there is a timer sheet. I don't know if you saw that. Did you see that? Okay. So it gives exact times and you have to customize. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure.
I think I got it. We got for Bob's speech, we're going to do 5 minutes is green, 6 minutes is yellow, 7 minutes is red. And for the table topics, we're doing 1 minute, 1.5, and 2. And then for the table topic evaluator, we offered Dan a chance to have more time. He declines, and we go with 2, 2.5, and 3.
Perfect. Okay.
Jean, you are our grammarian for this evening. So you explain the role of the grammarian.
Yes, and I do have a word. First, thank you, Mr. Table. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. As a grammarian, I have 2 roles for the evening. The first is to introduce the word of the day, which I will get to in just a moment. And the goal here is to use it often during our meetings so that we learn a new word. Secondly, is to take note of creative language use, creative phrases that I like that are used, and then also possible things that could use some maybe improvement from my side. And I will give a report at the end of the meeting. So the word of the day is desultory. Am I saying that right? Sometimes the words sound desultory, right? And so what it means is lacking a plan, a purpose, or enthusiasm. Okay, it's an adjective. And to, in a sentence, it is a few people, I'll put this, I'll hit send in just a second, were still dancing in a desultory fashion. So kind of lacking enthusiasm, sort of, rote, just,
Going through the motions.
going through the motions. So that's it, desultory, and I'll be looking for usages of that during the evening. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Great, thank you, Jean.
Mhm.
Now, if our accountant Rahul Vats were here, we'd ask him to explain his role. And Bob Fogel has offered me the opportunity to be tonight's joke master, which I have accepted and found material, so we're good there. Rahul is both the counter and general evaluator. Who feels that they could take on the counter role? Actually, I do. I think it would be a good idea for me to take that and leave the other role players alone. So I will be listening for uses of filler words or sounds, ers, ahs, you knows, but, so, and used to string together sentences, and other misuses of what ought to be silence between thoughts. I'll keep a record and give a brief report at the end of the meeting as the counter. At this point, I'd like to turn the gavel over to Bob Fogel, who will give us a preview of the speech that he's going to use in the area contest to win the gold medal. So Bob, take it away.
Before Mr. Timer starts, I just realized I didn't send my intro to anybody, the president, as far as my background, like I typically should have. And I guess I better start off with that. The name of my theme is Life in the Fast Lane. Okay. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home. Picture this. I'm sitting in the front seat of a car, looking out the windshield, and all I see are the stars and the moon. I'm almost floating like. I'll get back to that in a minute. It was another hot summer day. I told my dad I was going to spend the night at a buddy's house. And I got over to Mark's, and Tim was there, another buddy. Our plan wasn't much of a desultory plan. All we were going to do was go uptown on the square, meet a few friends, and hit on a few girls. That was my usual plan. And it was going quite well until the stroke of midnight got closer, at which time the girls had a 12 o'clock curfew, and they had to exit. Tim, Mark, and I were on the way back home to Mark's place. Mark pointed out there was a car over there which had a key in it, and it always had a key in it, and that maybe we should go take it for a joyride. Well, not want to turn out a dare or look like a chicken, naturally I said, okay. Mark hops in. Tim and I are on the outside pushing this car out ever so quietly, not to disturb anything. Mark goes to start it. Muffler's out. He hits the clutch, and it's a 3 on the tree. And we just realized that none of us know how to drive a 3 on a tree. Mark pops the clutch, squeals tires a little bit, and all we hear is chug, 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 and away we go. And the reason for the chugging was, instead of being in first gear, Mark was in third gear. We decided to go out of town. Get to the gravel was a little less conspicuous for all of us. And when you know, about 3-4 miles out there, we run across a set of railroad tracks. And those were no ordinary railroad tracks, for they were 10 feet higher than the road we were traveling on. And they had about a 45-degree angle up to those railroad tracks. Mark's driving along, and he hits it about 30, 35 miles an hour. And that was kind of like, whoa, hey, this is kind of fun. Yeah, we like this. We get to the other side. Tim says, hey, you guys, I want to drive it. Okay, Tim, yeah, how about it? I slide over in the passenger seat. Mark hops in back. Tim's going down. He's going about 60, 65 miles an hour. And he hits this ramp. And there I was, looking out the windshield, seeing the stars and the moon, floating along, when suddenly a song flashed through my head, Life in the Fast Lane. Boom, we hit. Oh, man, that was a rush. Of course, then we all had to take our turns driving this thing back and forth, at which time Mark got tired of this. He said, this car doesn't even have a radio, let alone seat belts. Let's go find another vehicle. We go back to town, and fortunate enough, we found a truck, and it had a radio. Back in those days, everybody left their keys in the ignition. They didn't have little hoodlums running around, didn't steal their vehicles. However, it was just one of those nights. We go back out there. Mark's in the lead. Mark goes over, hits the track. I'm following behind him. Mark miscalculated. He came down, and that right front tire went through the ditch. It went right through the ditch. It went right through the fence, into the cornfield, back out the field, through the fence, and on the road, and bam, right on the road. I'm following right behind him in the car, and I see this unfolding right before my very eyes. I apply the brakes, but this vehicle doesn't have air brakes. And I come down and I hit the road and I apply the brakes again. I come sliding in, dust is flying. Mark's like, his eyes are that big. He's like a deer in the headlight. Ah! I got this close to him. And I stopped just short. We decided it's time to go. We're making too much noise and stuff out here. We go to town. We get to the outskirts of town. We hit a feed store. And we decide to cut some donuts. And simply what cutting the donuts is just go round and round in circles like cowboys and Indians. We got about 3-4 laps. And all of a sudden, cherries popped. It's the cops. Run! Mark goes out first. He takes a left. And he's out of sight. Cops are chasing him. Tim's driving out. He goes right. And we go down until we hit an alley. We come to the end of the alley. It's dead end. Of course, we bail. We run towards Mark's house to the basement. But in our way is a train, a slow-moving train. Don't worry. We can crab walk. So we crab walk slowly underneath the slow-moving train and beat feet and run all the way to Mark's basement. We get down to Mark's basement, Tim and I, and I'm like, we're busted. We're going to jail. I'm going to Eldora. I'm going to boys' school. My dad's going to kill me. About an hour later, here comes Mark in the basement. Right, Mark, what's going on? He goes, quiet, wake my folks up. Tell us what happened. Well, I took off and I stopped at a stop sign and I killed the truck and I went to get out and act like I was talking to the cops, and I took off running. And because we know cops eat donuts, he couldn't catch me. And here I am. Let me tell you, for a small town, that was no small story. That hit front page. Interestingly enough, we all received our get out of jail free card that night, for the case was never cracked. And folks, the reason I'm sharing this fine story with you is because the statute of limitations has expired, as well as my story.
Pretty cool. Yes, Jean.
Art, my idea for tonight was I've allotted time in the agenda, which you guys just got, for each of us to have 2 minutes to evaluate Bob. And so,
Yeah.
Mr. Timer, if you were, and so what we'll do is we'll just go around. We're going to give Bob just a concentrated evaluation. Hi, Rahul. Concentrated evaluation. And it's okay if we say things several times because maybe that's something he really would pay attention to, but with the idea of giving him some feedback. So let's see. So I think the timing, Nick, would be 1, 1.5, and 2, but it's a drop dead at 2. So when you get the red, you have to stop because that's the time we have allotted. And what was it? We could start with, last time we started with what yeah. So we should start with the oldest this time. So that would be Art. I think that's Art. Unless Nick is a
Okay.
lot older than he looks.
I'm willing to be nominated. Well, I think this is a potentially winning speech. This is a great tall tales speech, a humor speech. There's excellent hand gestures and excellent vocal variety. And the one thing that I was imagining you could do slightly different would be there's a case where there's a point where you said, now Mark said, there's a truck over there, there's a car over there with the keys in it. But you were reporting what he said, and one of our speech competition winners, international winners, said use dialogue to make it real rather than reporting he said so and so. Just insert the dialogue. That's one idea that I had, which could make it even more powerful.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I'm probably next. Congratulations, Bob, on a good speech. It's a great story. You've really got a good backbone for a very good speech. The thing that I would suggest you do is think about framing a theme in one sentence and put that near the beginning of your talk. Something like, have you ever done something really crazy and gotten away with it and felt like it changed your life? And then tell your wild story, and then throw in that thing at the end and say, so we did a crazy thing. It could have really screwed up our lives, but we got away with it, and my life was better as a result. And then that's the typical way you see an inspirational speech in Toastmasters. They try to, it's actually international speech, but it's sometimes called inspirational because they try to form it around a theme. And so that's a good anchor that way if you can work that in.
All right.
Very good. I think maybe Jean would be next.
Bob, I think that was remembering the first time you gave it. Now it was almost like it was a different speech. It's so much better. The visuals, I could definitely feel what was happening. I could understand it much better. I loved your various juxtapositions. You had so much vocal variety, so many gestures. Remember that you'll be doing this in person, so you'll be not confined to the Zoom box. So you can, just be aware that you can be bigger and bolder. But you did so well.
Yeah.
I would have to think a little bit more about how to fix it. You have a number of different places where you are. You're downtown, you see the cars, you get in the cars, you head out. That's the part I think that gets a little bit hard to keep up with, is all the different locations that there are. So if you could simplify it, if you can somehow tighten that up so you're not in quite so many places, so that it's easier for the listener to kind of go, okay, so there, because I got the train thing, I got all that. But anyway, that was just my thought, because I think it keeps the momentum going. All right, so that's my little suggestion there.
Thank you, Jean.
Mhm.
Rahul,
So I joined in a little late. I apologize for that. But Bob, I think I've heard this speech before, or a speech along similar lines. And in between the two, this is my personal opinion. I liked some of the elements of the first one, or the older one. And the reason why, or maybe even I'm confusing a bit, but let me give you an example of one of the speech that I'm remembering, which had similar content. You had a funny speech about, you were driving a car and the car went up and was looking up, and do you remember that
That's
speech?
that one.
Yes.
Is that same one?
It's that
It's the
same one.
Yes.
That's how
so
it started out.
I missed that humor that you had in there, the way you had said it at that time. I missed that. And again, it could be because I joined late, so I'm not sure if I missed that portion. But beside what everybody has said, my only suggestion is, if you could incorporate some of that humor and include bigger, grander gestures, because you're going to do it in person. That's all from my side. I apologize for being late, but I'll watch the recording and send you more detailed feedback after I watch the recording.
Thank you, Rahul.
Nick, you're up. You're up, Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you, Bob, for a wonderful speech. Start off with, I think you had excellent hand gestures, excellent facial expressions. You really got into the camera, and this may not pertain to your speech next week, but it did something with the lighting. And there were times when the screen behind you went all dark, and then you would come back out and you would be in the light, and it seemed like you had practiced this in some Zoom setting. I enjoyed that. The vocalization, excellent. Then the suspense. You had really built up the suspense in this one, which I think was part of your goal, was to aiming for a more suspenseful action. I really like that. In order to play with that, at the beginning, you did the hands up, And I felt like you could have held on to that. Either describe it just a little bit longer or just hold that before you go on to the next topic. And then you were doing that right as you came down before the deer in the headlights. And at that moment, in that pause that you had there, you totally had me. Because I didn't know where you were going to go. I didn't know if you were going to continue the story like you had. You were going to give us some sort of new lesson or new life, perspective. But at that moment, you had me just 100% attention. I don't know where this is going. Because I'm paused, in the story, you don't know where it's going either. So I would think about those things because they're excellent points of your speech. And in a similar mindset as what Dan said, I enjoyed it. It's humorful. It's suspenseful. Also, what is the final goal? Or what would you do with this speech if you were giving it to 500 people or in front of a church group? How does it relate? Is that get out of jail free token? Is there something else you want to add in there? I'm over time, so thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everyone.
All really good comments.
Great. Took a lot of good notes. Number one thing I get at is, what's the life lesson that I learned? I'll have to share that. The only life lesson I've told my kids is, don't do what I do and you'll be just fine.
Well, you learned that a car will fly about 10, 15 feet in the air.
Yeah, it will. Flies farther than that.
But it comes down pretty hard.
It does. I don't know if I shared my story, but there was no seat belts in that car.
I really liked when you said that everybody left their keys and their ignitions because, we didn't have little hoodlums or anything that ran around and got the cars. I was like, oh, yeah, except for us.
Never.
I thought that was
Irony of the
that was a
situation.
laugh. So that was humor. That was like a little, you slid that in.
How'd you like my air brake thing? Did you like the air brake? This model didn't have air brakes. Did you catch that?
I
Oh,
caught it.
yeah, because it couldn't, it was a manual no, it's not manual, but it just, no.
He was in the air.
There's no car. I was in the air and I hit the brake, but this model
Oh.
didn't have air brakes.
Oh.
I didn't get it.
I didn't
thought-
get
You didn't
that.
catch that, did
What's
ya?
he talking-
Okay.
I think about air brakes, I think about a diesel rig or something like
Yeah.
that.
Exactly.
How does
That's
that
a play
apply
on
to
words.
pickup?
It was just a slant. It was just some
I
humor. I
see.
was just trying to generate.
Okay,
How you
okay,
catch on, but yeah.
okay.
I remember the last time you gave the talk, there was a little more time given to the cutting donuts and describing chasing around each other in a circle, cutting donuts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never heard the phrase before. So my ignorance was all over. What does this mean as cutting donuts? Sue told me, oh yeah, she knew what that was. I might be the only person who didn't know, but I think it would be a nice, if you have the time, if you can describe the cutting donuts a little more.
Okay.
He
did.
did say going around in circles,
I did.
which,
Yes.
In the park lot, because I remember that you and Donna did not know what cutting donuts was.
right.
And then she gave me the idea, well, only thing she knew about donuts that cops eat it. So when I said Mark was getting chased, the reason the cops couldn't catch him because he was eating donuts, so he couldn't catch him.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
where that humor came in from Donna.
I got that one.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
Also, there you had the cherries popped. What was
Cherries
that?
popped.
I didn't know what that was.
The cops.
That's cops. That's back in my day. If
Flashing light.
the cherries were on top of the car.
See,
and
I've
when-
never heard that.
We always
I-
called it gingerbread.
Oh,
I've never heard that, Bob. I'm older than you. So
Oh.
I guess I must not be traveling in the right, criminal circles or something.
you probably had too many cherries pop after you either.
I don't, I hadn't
Yeah.
heard that. I have had lights,
Yeah.
behind me, but
Oh,
I
yeah, I
hadn't
would
called them that.
imagine. Yeah, we all do. I don't know. It's just some Iowa slang I picked up somewhere along the way. Yeah. It's good to know because now I got to change that slang because I think everybody talks like I do, but everybody doesn't talk like I do, obviously. Look at that cute puppy.
We're just over our table topics point. If you guys want to switch roles, modes.
Yeah,
Mr. Table Topics, or Mr. Toastmaster.
yeah, it's time for table topics.
Okay. Yes, and that would be me, table
Yeah, Jean,
topics master.
Hmm.
I have a very obstreperous puppy right now. He's not desultory. He has a serious plan to disrupt me this evening. So he's enthusiastically being nefarious. I should write all those down for myself. All right. The theme for the night is memories. And I have some questions that you all can answer based on that theme. So who would like to go first?
Well, I'm going to need to practice.
Yes, who's the table topics evaluator tonight? Dan, okay. And then may have to zone out here and take this animal somewhere else, like lock him in the bathroom or throw him down the basement or something. So questions 1 through 5. So Art, which number would you like?
Let's go with 1.
All right. Tell us about a memory of someone that you hold dear. What happened and why is this memory special to you?
Thank you, Madam Topics Master. The man who whose memory jumped into my mind as soon as you told me the question, is named John McAdam. And John and I had some experience together that I've never had with anybody else. It was 1961. We were in Long Beach, California. We were both members of a Sea Scout crew, and we'd been taking my sailboat out as often as we could that summer. And we sailed around in Alamitos Bay, which is a small sheltered inlet off of the Pacific Ocean. It's fully built up with houses around it and docks. And it's the kind of small waterway area where speedboats have to make sure that they're going slow enough to not leave a wake. And we could go faster than the speedboats in our sailboat. And this one day, we decided to go out into the ocean, out through the jetties at the Seal Beach Harbor, and go out into the ocean where there was much stronger wind. And we took my sailboat out as far as we dared, and then we sailed it down the backs of the swells, which were about 4 feet tall. We sailed it on what's called a broad reach, and we hiked out over the transom of the boat to get the bow up out of the water, and we fooled around with the sails and we made the boat do what's called planing, which is what a speedboat does when it's going fast enough. It gets most of its hull out of the water. And we were doing that, surfing up the backs of the swells and down the face of the swell and screaming our heads off and spray flying everywhere. And we did that for about an hour, proving to ourselves that this boat would plane. We never heard of anybody being able to plane the boats before. And that was the most fun that I had in a sailboat up to that date with anybody, and it was with John McAdam. He was a great fellow Sea Scout.
All right, thank you, Art. I have 2 through 5. Who would like to take a shot? Rahul. Okay, 2 through 5. Hope your teeth are feeling better. Or
Yeah, I just have slight pain in one of the in this area. Otherwise, it's all good.
okay, good, good. So 2 through 5.
I'll take 2.
All right. Are memories useful to entertain, or do they keep us tied to the past and not paying attention to the present? Please explain.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. I feel memories are a good way to not only keep us, but often our friends, family, and other close people around us entertained. Memories of your childhood, memories of some decisions that you have taken in the past often makes up for a great story. I have a magnet on my refrigerator on which it talks about that bad decisions make great stories. And often, and in our life, memories are about those decisions that we have taken at one point or the other in our life. And whether it's a good decision or a bad decision, I believe they become an important part of things that you can share, relate to, tie to, and discuss with your families, keep them entertained, keep yourself entertained, and often learn from them in order to what to do or not to do in a similar situation in future. Now, can memories tie you to the past and hold yourself hostage? I would disagree. I think we are hostage by our own inhibition or fear for doing something that either we have done in our past or we have not done in our past. But memories, I don't think play any role in inhibiting us or prohibiting us from doing something in our future or in our present. So with that, back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Very good, thank you. Who would like to go next? 3 through 5? Nick. Okay,
Number 5, please.
number 5. If talking to a young person, let's say 14 and under, what memory of yours would you share to help instill wisdom or insight for that young person? You have up to 30 seconds, of course, always.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. What wisdom would I share with someone who is under the age of 14? It's funny that this question comes up because I've been thinking about this. When is the right moment to tell this story? There was a time, it just took one time, when my mother, we were driving in a car on a brick road. I know the corner, I know the curve. I cannot forget this. And she told to me, you have just one chance to be honest. For your entire life, you will all ride. You will be an honest person as long as you maintain that honesty. And I don't know why. I don't know if that was a special lesson for me, if that's something that can be told to everyone, but I held on to that and I would always tell the truth. Now, sometimes I might get a little technical on what's the truth and what's not the truth, but I always found a way to speak the truth. And if I could pass that on to other people, I would hope that they would see all of the benefits that it has given to me. Thank you for the question, Madam Toastmaster, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much. All right. I have 3 or 4. Let's see, I have Bob or Dan, right? Bob, okay. So 3 or 4?
4.
Share with us a memory of something that made you feel particularly proud.
A memory that made me feel particularly proud recently has just happened. It's a sad note. I had a cousin, a young cousin in her 30s, pass away from cancer within the last year. My oldest son had volunteered to do the eulogy, and a crowd, she was very much loved, and there was hundreds and hundreds of families and people there. He went up there, gave the eulogy perfectly, and before he gave the eulogy, he had wrote a poem that he had thought up himself. I was just beaming, thinking, did he plagiarize that poem, or did he actually think and write it himself? He actually wrote it himself. Sadly, 2 months later, my daughter with all the kids, their half sister, little boy, he died at 5 years old of cancer. And that was in December. At which time another eulogy had to be said. My other son, he stepped up to the bat. And he did superbly, as if he'd been doing it for years and years. He shared all. And I sat back beaming again. I'm thinking, I've never seen these in my boys before. Where do they learn that? Aha, it occurred to me. They had saw me ever since they were little kids. I had public speaking. I spoke in churches. I spoke at functions. I spoke here. I spoke there. And I was known as a public speaker for all those years. I never thought they were listening or watching me for anything until their time, their moment came. And I sat there in awe of what happened before my very eyes. That's my memory.
Okay. And ask not for whom the bell tolls, Dan. It tolls for thee.
We are at our time, but we can go
Yeah.
over if you want to
Okay.
do one more.
If we need to finish up, that's fine.
It's time to vote for the best speaker. Table topics.
Okay.
You can send your votes to me.
Well, first we have to see qualifiers, Dan.
Yes,
Art.
qualifiers. I timed you, Nick. You were 147.
Yeah, I was also timing. Art did not qualify. Rahul qualified. I qualified, and Bob qualified.
Okay. So
Is that
Nick,
what you want
Bob,
for now?
Nick, Bob, and Rahul are who qualified. Okay. 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 Now make sure you direct this to Art as the Toastmaster. Otherwise, everyone's going to see, which is fine because we're all friendly, but just a reminder.
Okay. Moving right along. We have table topics evaluation from Dan Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. We had 4 speakers tonight. By the way, I thought they were very good questions. Art was our first speaker. He told a really nice story of a memory from his youth of sailing with a friend. What was it called? In Sea Scouts. I've never heard of that, but I understand. And how you guys figured out a way to make your boat plane over these big waves. It sounded like a blast, really fun. The obvious feedback for you, Art, is just the watching the time. And I was going to ask you, I don't remember, did you take a little time at the beginning to plot out how you're going to give the reply? Perhaps you could have taken a little more, and if you had it clearly in mind, then you would have made it to the end under the time. So when you win at area, it's because you're going to bring it in per the watch. But
Yeah,
excellent.
I made a classic mistake. I spent too much time talking about Alamitos Bay and not enough about being out on the ocean.
Right. But great table topic. Rahul had a question. Do memories keep us tied to the past, or are they valuable in some other way? I thought Rahul's answer was excellent in that he was speaking about how decisions, good and bad, memories of decisions, good and bad, can keep us entertained. We can share things that have happened to us and to relatives and entertain everybody. The suggestion I would have for Rahul was that you decided at the end to wrap around and more directly answer that question. Do they keep us bound to the past? I thought it would have been stronger for the way it unfolded if you had quickly said, no, I don't agree with that, and then went into your good response that you had enthusiasm about, and we would have had a better energy in your talk that way, I think. Nick was asked what memories he would share with a young person. And it was interesting the way Nick told his story of being with his mother and getting that life lesson. And you only got one chance to be honest. I thought it was excellent. I thought it was a good response to the question. Somehow I was a little bit confused, and it may have just been me, about your mother telling you you only have one chance as you're driving down the road. I thought something dramatic was going to happen, like I'm going to drive off this bridge if you don't tell me the truth. I want you to. But anyway, I felt a little bit like I'd lost my navigator. If you could maybe tighten that up. And then finally, Bob was talking about being proud of his sons, giving eulogies in difficult situations, and then realizing that they had watched him and learned, and that's how they knew how to do it. I really don't have any feedback that I can think of this minute, but I'll give you more after I think about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Nick, can you tell us which evaluators qualified?
Well, it depends on the goal, Mr.
Did you time the mini evaluations?
Oh, yes. Are we counting those? Art qualified, Dan qualified, Jean qualified, and Rahul qualified. I did not qualify. And then in the table topics evaluation, if we're going for 2 to 3, we just missed it.
That was the time.
Okay.
I'm sorry, if we were going to 2, he qualified on 2 to 3 or did not?
Did not.
He did not qualify on 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay. So voting amongst all of the mini evaluators,
I'll say it again. Art, Dan, Jean, and Rahul.
okay. Send your votes to me on that. So we have a winner in this area. It's time for reports now. Rahul, could you take over and solicit reports from the various?
Sure. Thank you, Sir Toastmaster, Mr. Art Atkinson. I would like to call on the timer report. So Nick, if you could give me a quick 1-minute report on all of our speakers.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. We start off with Bob, and his prepared speech came in at 7 minutes and 6 seconds. And then the evaluations of that speech, Art was at 1 minute and 15 seconds, Dan 1 minute and 15 seconds, Jean 1 minute 47 seconds, Rahul 1 minute 30 seconds, Nick was 2 minutes and 14 seconds. In the table topics themselves, Art was at 3 minutes and 7 seconds, Rahul 2 minutes 11 seconds, Nick 151, Bob 201. And in the table topics evaluation, Dan came in at 3 minutes and 37 seconds. Very close. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Grammarian Jean, can we have a grammarian report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. We had 2 people use the word of the evening, desultory. Bob used it. I didn't quite catch how Bob used it, but it was a good attempt.
If I pronounce it correctly, when Mark and Tim and I went uptown, we had a desultory plan to hang out with our friends and girls.
So meaning kind of not too much of a plan.
Right. It wasn't really a plan. It was just, yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be, you wouldn't have a desultory plan because that's almost like you're saying the opposite. You went uptown, desultorily something.
Okay.
Because you just didn't have a plan. You just
Didn't have a plan.
Yep, just gonna hang. And that's the adverb, desultorily. But anyway, and I used it once. The rest of you kind of were desultory about using the word of the day tonight, I think. So when you get the word of the day, try to have a plan to try to use it. There, that's me using it. Holy smokes. Hang on just a second. I have a dog tearing up.
I could go ahead and give the counters report.
Please go ahead, Art.
It was remarkably clean tonight. I heard one from Nick just a moment ago. And I've listened for and heard no filler words from anybody else.
Thank you.
Oh.
Jean, if you can conclude your report.
Thank you. I heard a lot of interesting things from Bob, cutting some donuts, the cherries popped, the case was never cracked. I heard Rahul very nicely juxtaposing inhibiting or prohibiting when he was talking about memories, not inhibiting or prohibiting progress in life. Nothing else really stood out that much more for me, but those are what I had. I would mention a couple of areas for improvement, and this would be for Bob. Just it's a tense thing as to which tense you're in. So the one comment was he had wrote a poem, and I think the correct thing there would have been he had written a poem. And then the other one was they had saw me, you know, when the kids and so I think the best thing there, they had seen me doing public speaking and stuff. So just a little bit of brush up there. But otherwise, always stellar communication going on here. So thank you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you. Now it's time for us to welcome our joke master, Mr. Bob Fogel.
I took that on for Bob.
Sorry, I was just reading off that. Go ahead, Art.
So a couple in their 90s were both having problems remembering things. During a checkup, the doctor told them that they're physically okay, but they might want to start writing things down to help them remember. Later that night, while watching TV, the old man gets up from his chair. Want anything while I'm in the kitchen? He asks his wife. Will you get me a bowl of ice cream? She says. Sure. Don't you think you should write it down so you can remember? She asks. No, I can remember it, he says. Well, then would you put some strawberries on top too? Maybe you should write it down so as not to forget. He says, I can remember that. You want a bowl of ice cream with strawberries? I would also like whipped cream. I'm certain you'll forget that. Please write it down, she says. Irritated, he says, I don't need to write it down. I can remember it. Ice cream with strawberries and whipped cream. I got it, for goodness sake. He toddles off to the kitchen. About 20 minutes later, the old man returns from the kitchen and hands his wife a plate of bacon and eggs. She stares at the plate for a moment. Where's my toast?
It's a
Thank
good
you.
couple.
Thank you,
Good
sir.
couple.
Joke master. All right, it's time for me to evaluate the evaluators. I won't be going into the evaluations for the evaluation that we provided to Bob, because I think everybody spoke from a place for providing valuable feedback for Bob. We all really wish Bob to excel at the contest and make the club proud. So everybody gave some suggestions that they felt would be valuable for Bob to include in order to give a winning speech. So all in all, a good job by all the evaluators who evaluated Bob's speech, including Nick. I don't think 15 seconds would have mattered, but Nick was a pro and he disqualified himself. So kudos to you, Nick, on that. On the table topics evaluation, Dan did an excellent job, as always. One of the things that has been a recurring pattern with all of us, not just Dan, is that we often say we would evaluate in 2 to 3 minutes, and then we end up taking more time. So my only suggestion and feedback for Dan is maybe it's okay to request one more additional minute, seeing that we are failing to comply with the normal time limit, or not to give too much time on the first speaker. But here in this particular case, I support that you spend some more time on Art, as he's going to be representing us in the table topics contest. So my real suggestion, and the only suggestion to Dan, is we should have added more time, considering we were also giving feedback to Art for his table topics contest. And with that, I'd like to conclude my report. One additional point of feedback is for me to make sure that I don't get late. I really apologize for being late today, hoping that it would not happen in future. And with that, I'd like to turn the conduct of the meeting back to our Toastmaster, Mr. Art Atkinson.
Thank you, Rahul. So meeting awards time. We have a best speaker of the evening. It was not necessary to vote. He came in under time. Mr. Bob Fogel.
Yay. Yay.
Mhm.
And we have a best table topics evaluator. Mr. Dan Craig.
Hey,
No,
Dan.
no, he didn't make it.
I DQ'd.
For the mini evaluation, I believe.
Thing is the mini evaluation, not table topics.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. I was
Okay.
given a second chance.
Which hand is that?
Oh,
Yeah.
Dan.
Okay, is anybody else? I will now conclude the meeting.
We do have best table topic speaker.
Topics.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Best table topics, Art. You said best table topics evaluator.
Yes, I missed the best table topics itself. Let me look back through.
Mm.
Suspenseful night.
Hold on, folks. Nick got it. Nick is the best one.
All right, Nick. Okay, here we go. Do.
Again, excellent table topics tonight.
Okay.
So now I will adjourn the meeting so we can talk about the contest.
Okay.
I adjourn the meeting until next Tuesday evening at 7:40.